Don't just live for tomorrow, or just live in yesterday. Just be glad for all you have that's in today.
Hey everyone, Connie here, and welcome to my blind reaction to Revolting Rhymes. So this is a donation reward for Venom0027. It's two half-hour long specials. And from what I know of them, they're kind of I don't know for sure, but I think they're supposed to be either dark or more mature looks into fairy tales, something like that. Um, I don't know all the details about this. I'm kind of going into this with very little information. It's something I've never heard of before. That I can say that much. I've never heard of it. I don't know the context behind any of it, so I really don't know what to expect here. Um, so there's really not much of anything to say going into this. Obviously, like a lot of kids, I grew up with nursery rhymes, um, and fairy tales and all that, and I enjoyed them well enough, but it's like I never really like connected to them in any meaningful way when I was a kid. It's just like, oh yeah, these are cute, these are fun, these are nice. I was always more into like the actual like shows. Like I grew up watching stuff like Blue's Clues and stuff, and even when I was even younger than that, Barney. Like that's the kind of stuff like that I was more into as a kid. Arthur was a big one I grew up with. And then of course you got into the point where I got into the early anime stuff like Yu-Gi-Oh and Pokemon and Digimon and all that. But it's like nursery rhymes and stuff. It's like yeah, I enjoyed them well enough, but I don't remember ever actually connecting to them or really getting like heavily into them. I might be wrong though. I have pretty shit memory, so I might be wrong. Um, it's really hard to say. What I can say is that I am interested to see what this is, though, because we are entering the time of the year where darker, more spooky stuff is kind of getting more commonplace because we're only a month away pretty much from Halloween. So, yeah. Now, again, I don't even know if that is the case with this series. I don't even know series, 2 episodes. I don't even know if it is darker or scary in any way. Like I don't know. I'm just kind of going off of what I think based off of the name. Um, it's hard to say. It's hard to say because revolting could also just mean gross. It could be just a lot of like gross out humor, like you would see in stuff like Invader Zim or I guess even SpongeBob to a degree. What other shows? What other shows do a lot of gross out humor? I guess maybe Cramp Twins. God, Cramp Twins. That's a blast from the past. Anyway, anyway. Oh, Ren and Stimpy was good with that. Well, good with that in terms of like, yeah, they were good at doing that, but Ren and Stimpy was not a good show, in my opinion. But anyway. Um, so you may have noticed also that I'm doing a lot of donation reward stuff lately, outside of just the normal like uh show reaction we're currently doing. And that's because I kind of want to get caught up on some of this stuff. Like a lot of times I tend to have a lot of stuff on the back burner and have a lot of stuff that I just like don't get to as often. And it's like, yeah, I'm doing the constant stream of uh all these different reactions that I normally do, like every week or so. You know, we have One Piece, we have Glitch Text now, we have Pandora Hearts. We're doing these shows like pretty much on a weekly basis. And it's like, that's fine, but it's like at the same time, you kind of want to check out new stuff. And instead of just like marathoning through shows all the time, like I did to get through Castlevania, even though that was not planned. I also want to just check out other stuff too every now and again. So that's why these donation rewards are great for that. Getting to check out movies that I either wouldn't have otherwise checked out, or maybe even never even heard of, or getting to see stuff like this is like two specials centering around fairy tales. It's like that's cool. I never even heard of this before, and I would definitely probably wouldn't have checked it out on my own even if I did. So yeah, it's like it gets me to expand things and gets me to find some new entertainment, some fun entertainment. So I definitely enjoy, for sure, getting to get to this stuff. Um, and I hope that you guys continue to bring this stuff to my attention. And I know with the world the way it is, it's like asking you to keep donating is like hard because you guys need to be able to care for yourselves during this time too. Um, and as always, donations are just optional. You don't have to do them. Um, I appreciate it when you do, and yeah, obviously you get rewards out of it, but you don't have to do them. It's completely optional. It's completely your choice. Um, I'm not forcing you or anything. But yeah, yeah. Either way, it's a fun thing that gets me to expand things on this channel a little bit more than just like doing like that Nuzlocke I did, or the current Pokemon TCG Let's Play that's just kind of sporadically put up. I need to record more for that too, by the way. I just posted the last of my recorded footage for that in the last part. Um, so yeah, yeah. We're going to just kind of continue through these, and I'm enjoying them. And like I said, if you can, I would love very much to see some more of this awesome stuff. But don't worry, don't feel bad if you can't. I understand, especially with the world as it is now. I completely get it. If you're unable to donate, if you can though, and if you want to, you just have to go to the link in the description below to my PayPal, and it's as easy as that. Just donate any amount. Any amount is good, and you get a donation reward no matter what, no matter how much you donate. And your donation reward can be pretty much anything. It can be a show, which will be added to the list for our donation reward slot. It could be a movie, which will just be added to the list, and I'll get to whenever I can get to it. Or it could be a YouTube series, YouTube video, all that kind of stuff. Um, so yeah, feel free to suggest anything. And I do have a list on my Discord, which is also linked down in the description below. You can check out that list. It's just a list of ideas. It's obviously you're not restricted to that list, but it's a list of ideas of stuff I have not seen that you could have me react to or check out at least. So yeah, there's an idea as well. But in the meantime, most of this I've been saying has just been to fill out time. So we are going to get to the reaction now. And hope for the best. Hope that this is really entertaining, really fun. We'll see. So when the screen fades to black, pause this redirect, and something I just said was off. When the screen fades to black, pause this redirect and go to the description below. Follow the link to the reaction, and after you watch it, come back here to the redirect and resume play. Because after it fades to black and then fades back in, everything from that point forward will be my afterthoughts and will contain spoilers to the specials. So that being said, thank you so much for tuning in, and I will see you at the reaction. We are back, and we'll begin with spoilers in 3, 2, 1, now. So, that was Revolting Rhymes, and yeah, I could say I had a good time. I'm not going to keep doing that, by the way. I'm not going to keep trying to rhyme. But in all seriousness, I want to touch on something right away, just kind of get it out of the way. And that was, what was the relationship between Red Riding Hood and Snow White in this? Because at first you can read it, oh yeah, they're friends. They met because their lives were not all so great, and they formed a friendship and grew close. But as the story of the first part went on, it was clear, at least to me, that there was something more there. Like the subtext, while unfortunately remaining subtext, was honestly very heavy. It was very heavy. So I actually wanted to look it up to see like what was actually intended. And I found this article that actually features. It's from the Radio Times, the article, and it features uh, a quote from Martin Pope, who is the co-founder of the animators who made this film. Obviously based on the Roald Dahl book. And he says, we wouldn't be so gauche as to say that they're in a relationship, but let's just say that we have left it open. So they did leave it open enough to be interpreted romantically, but they didn't confirm anything, and it could just be seen as like a really close friendship. Um, Honestly, again, with the subtext and everything, which was again super heavy, I can't see it as anything other than romantic. Like, you could try to like um explain away everything as like, oh, yeah, friends do this stuff. Like, even the so-called date night, as I viewed it, that they went on. Like, yeah, you could easily see that as, yeah, friends go out and hang out together. Yeah, I've gone and hung out with friends plenty of times, and I probably will again once we're able to do more of that. um, but yeah, it's like but still, it's just the context behind everything. It made it seem very romantic, and especially like note that Red was shown at the end of part one and during part two to be a single mother. Like, there was no husband or anything in the house, no partner of any kind. She was the only parent to these kids. So, yeah, while she could still go out with friends and all that, it's like the fact that they didn't give these kids another parent also kind of, in my eyes, helps the idea that her and Snow are a couple. Um, it's interesting. I think they wanted to keep it though a little unclear because let me see here. Let me check something real quick just to be. This came out in 2016, and admittedly, even in 2016, even 4 years ago, only 4 years ago, there was still an issue with some people about putting LGBTQ plus romances on screen. Um, and although this was a special, a two-part special that was created for the Christmas season, which, by the way, I didn't like get anything Christmassy really, except for like the snowfall at the end of the story in the second one. Um, Outside of like that, it's like it wasn't very Christmassy, but I guess I can see just fairy tales in general being a good Christmas story kind of thing. But anyways, even though it was a two-part special and all for BBC, it's like it's still, they probably still didn't want to like make anything explicit. They wanted to probably make it vague enough again to be read either way, but so that they could get past censors and make it so that it's like it's not pushing the boundaries really. Because there are still people, even today, even in 2020, who will complain about that and who do complain about that every time these kind of shows do show these LGBTQ plus relationships. Hell, and not even just on TV, but even on platforms like Netflix. Like She-Ra got a lot of flack for just a lot of things. Its redesigns, but especially the LGBT stuff. There's a lot of people who, uh, quote unquote, canceled the series because of its clear LGBTQ plus themes. Even before anything was like largely canonized. Um, yeah, it's just I think that that might have been kind of a lot of the process, and I don't know what the book is like, so I don't know how the book portrays it. But in this animation, again, in my eyes, it was just super obvious. Like the subtext was so heavy that it's like I personally couldn't read it any other way. It's one of those cases where it's just like it feels to me like they were written as if they were supposed to be a couple, but that nothing was blatantly outright confirmed because it would be hard to do again without causing some kind of spat with some people. um but yeah, I wanted to talk about that first because that was, well, honestly, aside from just being a major factor in the first episode, or the first part, and even continuing into the second, um it was notable throughout the entire thing. It just felt like it was a part of it, and and honestly, admittedly, as someone who's LGBTQ plus myself, and someone who loves that kind of representation in media, it's like, yeah, it's like my mind did attach to that. But let's talk about the entire thing. So this two-part special is a retelling of these classic fairy tales in a new way. Obviously, taking some things that we know about them, but mixing them up, changing them up, bringing in the darker side of things that the original fairy tales held, but also just doing some generally new things and in a lot of ways modernizing them. um, Really, I think the best aspect of this two-parter of the special, I would say, is the storytelling, not the writing, not the dialogue specifically, but the storytelling. The way the stories are presented by the wolf, the rhyming scheme of it all, just the manner of how each story is presented. It's like it brings you back to when you were a kid laying in bed being told these stories. It reminds you of those simpler times. And even though there's a lot of a darker tone, it's like that kind of tracks as well. Yeah, it brings you back to those times that you were told stories by your parents or whoever when laying in bed, a babysitter maybe. But at the same time, it keeps it more mature and adult so that you can still appreciate it now, that you can still connect with it as an adult. It makes you feel like a kid again without being too childish, for lack of a better way to put it. And I really like that. I think that's fantastic. The art style and animation really fits with it as well. It has that very classic childlike wonder look. Like you think of like all these classic movies, and you want to know what this kind of made me think of? You remember the old Rankin Bass movies, like The Town Without a Santa Claus, or whatever it was called, or The Year Without a Santa Claus, rather, The Year Without a Santa Claus, and Santa Claus is Coming to Town, I think were two of them. Um, those old stop motion Rankin Bass movies. Very classic, Snow Miser and Heat Miser. Um, it reminds me of those almost, but obviously in the more Roald Dahl style. Um, it again connects to those younger days, but at the same time makes it so that it's something that you can enjoy as an adult and without feeling like, oh, I'm just watching some little kiddie thing again. And I really love that. The voice acting was phenomenal. Like all of the voice actors from especially the wolf, but all of them did fantastic. Like seriously fantastic. I really can't say like any of them were bad. Like even the ones who were meant to be more goofy, like the evil stepsisters and Jack's mother, even they were just so well acted. The evil queen was fantastic. Like that was I've seen many different interpretations of the evil queen from the Snow White story. Obviously, you have the old like Disney movie. Uh, you have Regina from Once Upon a Time. But this is a really interesting take because the evil queen was never like made in any of those other versions to be necessarily unattractive, and I wouldn't even say she was as unattractive as other characters in this, but she was clearly not meant to be, you know, typically beautiful. She was kind of like this more buff, muscular, large, uh, what's what's the word for it? Broad chested, wide shouldered type of character. Um, and again, she had like this. She reminds me of that character from Total Drama Island. I can't remember her name, but where she's like this kind of like, I hate to put it this way, but masculine woman stereotype. Um, but she was also delightfully crazy and wild and just completely off the wall. Like the fact that she ate the heart is like just so WTF. And also another thing about that is like that there was never any resolution to that story, to that part of the story. The the evil queen, in her eyes, she won. And technically, in a way, she did. And Snow White had a happy ending, mind you. But like she escaped and she was no longer royalty and she lived on her own and did her own thing and reunited with Red and everything. But at the same time, it's like technically, I want to call her Regina, the evil queen's plan worked. And even though Red wasn't killed, even though it didn't go completely according to what she wanted, she succeeded. So it's a really interesting take on that. And I like how in the Snow White part of the story, how the seven dwarves were gambling addicted former horse jockeys. That was really out there, but it's like I actually really enjoyed that aspect of it. I like how Red ended up becoming this famed wolf slayer who wore and carried around the skins of her slain victims, and it's like, holy shit, that is both dark and badass. Like she's just wearing the pelt, a fur coat made from the pelt of one of these three wolves, one of the two nephews of the big bad wolf. And she carries around the handbag made from the skin of the pig banker who she killed because he stole her money and well, she doesn't know what he used it for, but she knows he stole her money and cheated her out of that and everything. So it's like, holy shit. Like Red Riding Hood in this was badass and awesome, and I loved it. And I know, like, going back to the entire romance possibility thing, I know that's also kind of like a trope in some lesbian romance stories and stuff, where it's like, oh, the cool badass woman gets together with the more feminine, demure, uh, typically girly type woman. Um, I know it's kind of a little bit tropey, but honestly, I've never really minded that much. I thought it's like, if it's done well, it can be cute and nice, and there's nothing wrong with that. Um, yeah, it's tropey, and yeah, it's not always the case in real life, of course, but I've known people who have been in those kind of relationships, so it's not unrealistic per se. Um, Now, going back to things though, the first episode was definitely better than the second. The first part was definitely better. Um, Not just because of the obvious, in my eyes, obvious romance angle and everything between Snow and Red. I just thought it was more entertaining. The stuff with Cinderella and Jack in the second one was fine. I didn't mind it, but it was. I think maybe it's the fact that the wolf was changing the story and making it sound nicer for the kids' sake because he was growing attached to them while telling them the story. I think it was because he was changing it to make it sound nicer that it almost felt like it was, well, it was what people did with fairy tales. As was blatantly mentioned in the second episode, the fairy tales were darker and everything. I think it was the second episode that mentioned it. The fairy tales were darker and everything, gruesome even, but that people changed them to make them more kid friendly, basically. Um, and it almost feels like it was doing the same thing in this. That the wolf was changing the story to make it more kid friendly. And mind you, there was still some darker stuff that he kept in. Like, even after he saw that they were getting scared, he still kept in the fact that Jack's mother was eaten by the giant. He just tried to make it funnier. Um, it's just, and even with like the chopping off the heads, he made it so like, oh, the heads are bouncing around, and it's goofy, it's silly. And it's like, previously in the story, it's like you heard all this like darker stuff. It's like people being killed, like, pretty darkly. And then it's like all of a sudden, oh, they get their heads chopped off, but their bodies are running around trying to catch the bouncing heads, and it's like, eh, that's a little too silly, and it feels like a very weird tone shift to me. Um, and again, I get why there was an actual in story reason why it changed like that. Because again, the wolf was trying to tone it down for the kids who he saw were getting scared because he was growing attached to them. But still, it's still just, I don't know. It took a lot of the fun out of it. I liked the darker aspect to it. I liked that it was darker. I don't know. I don't know. Maybe that's just me. Plus, again, I think the stories in the first episode were just more entertaining. I just liked them better. I thought they were more interesting, more fun to watch, and I was actually more invested to see how they turned out. The stuff with Jack and Cinderella in the second one, it's like, take it or leave it. And some of the choices were just like, okay. Like the fact that they switched out the slipper, the glass slipper, they flushed the glass slipper and switched it out with a with the one ugly stepsister's shoe instead. It's like, one, why the fuck would the prince fall for that? I mean, yeah, the prince was clearly a asshole, but I don't think he was necessarily dumb. He wasn't necessarily shown to be an idiot. He was just shown to be an ass. Like, even at the ball, he was very much creepy and just toxic and ew. um, but yeah, it's just, Why would he fall for that? I in the original story, if you didn't know, it was the glass slipper, and everyone was trying it on, and the stepsisters actually cut off their heels, or at least one of them did. I don't remember if it was both, but at least one of them did. Cut off the heel just to fit in the slipper. It's like that's fucking gruesome. And yeah, obviously they're not going to go as dark as some of those old fairy tales were, but still, it's like you could have done something. I just feel like switching out the slipper was a weird decision. And like the entire thing about Jack using the gold leaves to buy the shop from the fairy godmother, it's like one, that was all the money he had. So where'd he get the money to start making that jam? He like it showed all of the money he made, all of those leaves were in that wheelbarrow that the fairy godmother had. So it's like unless there were more leaves that he just it just didn't show, and that's what he used to start making the jam. But he made the jam specifically for Cinderella because it showed on the jar Cindy's jam, and it's like yeah, it showed that he kind of had a thing for her, like that was clear. But it felt like that relationship was kind of meh, like compared to the first. Like no matter if you see the relationship between Red and Snow White as romantic or not, or if you just see it like as a friendship, even so, it was still much better built up. Much it had much more actual context to it to make it work. This one is just like, okay, they live next door. He kind of fawned over her a little bit. She snubbed him at every chance. She never really gave him the time of day. But all of a sudden, after she's saved by the fairy godmother, she's brought to the jam shop, which he just happens to make in honor of her, which is like that's a little much. And she just sees that he named it after her and everything, and just falls in love with him, and they get married and have kids and shit. It's like, oh, okay, that you're going a little fast there. You need to slow down and actually build up a relationship between them because that just kind of happened. And it's like, ugh. It's not like it's gross or anything like problematic or anything. It's just, it's weird and just rushed. That's the big thing. It's rushed. And again, I know that the wolf was changing the story. And I think it was actually clear. It looked like the that Cinderella was going to die, was going to be killed by the prince and his soldiers. But that it showed the wolf was getting like concerned over how the kids were reacting, and he changed it at that point so that the fairy godmother popped up and saved her. But still, I mean, even with that being the case, it still felt really rushed, and I almost think that was the point, though. I think it was trying to show like the first the first part, the first episode of this special was the wolf telling the stories to this adult woman, the actual babysitter, who was supposed to be there for the second part, that he took the place of. Um, she's an adult woman; she can handle this a lot more. So he's telling her it in a more dark way, and he starts that way in the second episode with the kids, but he starts sanitizing it, and I think that is supposed to be kind of um, a nod to how, as it was mentioned in the episode itself, how people sanitized these stories for the sake of making them more kid friendly. And even if that's the point, I get it and I understand that. I definitely caught that. But at the same time, it made the story feel rushed and weak in comparison to the first. Maybe that's just me. Maybe that's just me, though. Also, I've talked about this for a long time. I've had a lot to say on this, apparently. I just checked the recording timer. It's like, holy shit, I've been talking about this for almost 26 minutes. Jeez. Um, but overall, I did really enjoy it. Even the second episode, I did really enjoy it. This was a fun little special to react to. Again, I had never heard of this before. So I thank you, Venom, for requesting it as a donation reward. And as I said in the pre-thoughts, if you or anyone else wishes to have another donation reward, you can donate via PayPal. Link is in the description below. Any amount is good. I appreciate it no matter what, and you will get a donation reward no matter what you donate. Um, and you can request me to react to a movie, a series, something on YouTube, or even a special like this. Anything you want, really. Um, so if it's a show, it'll probably just be added to my list, and we'll get to it down the line. If it's a movie, we'll get to it kind of whenever. And same with specials and YouTube stuff. We'll get to that like kind of whenever when we get to it. But yeah, if you can, it's completely optional. You don't have to. Don't feel obligated to. Um, it does help me for sure, but if you can't, especially in these times, I completely understand. Um, but yeah, either way, I really did enjoy this. So thank you, Venom, for requesting this. And for now, I want to hear what you think. So tell me in the comments below what you thought of Revolting Rhymes, which, by the way, the title really still doesn't fit. Like, it wasn't that revolting. Like, revolting is a strong word, and it really wasn't that revolting. It was a little dark, but eh. Anyway, tell me your thoughts in the comments below, and thank you so much for tuning in. For now, I'm Connie, and I'm signing off. See y'all next time.